Hi, today we will see how to configure Entity Framework 9 with .NET 9 API project. We will go with database first approach where we will have the tables defined already and we will try to connect this database table with our .NET classes. So here I have two tables. One is user table, which would be a primary table of user information, and I have a to-dos table. In to-dos table, I have a column userId, which will be a foreign key on the user's user ID primary key, so that we can fetch the to-dos per user ID. So first thing we need to do is we need to define the mapping of users and to-dos, and then we will try to read this data from database into our .NET API project using Entity Framework 9. So first thing is we need to install the packages. We will need three different packages from Entity Framework. First is Entity Framework Core. Then we need, let me just pull it up a little bit. Yeah, SQL Server. And the third would be the design. So we can see in the project file, the version of the project, the references we added is 9, Entity Framework 9. So that's good. Next, we need to define the model classes. So let's define model classes. For that, let me create a folder first called database and models folder. So we need two files, user.cs and todo.cs. For user, I will add a class with the properties which shall match into the database. So here we can see we have user ID, email, tenant ID, name, created, updated at. We have got these properties here. And since it's a primary key, it has a dependency on the to-dos class. We need to define the navigation property here. Then we need a to-dos class. So let's go and add a to-dos class here. In to-dos class, we have these properties here, title, description, is completed, and so on. We have defined these properties here, and here is a foreign key. So this shall refer to the user class we created. And one user can have more than one to-dos, that's why it's a collection. However, per to-do, we will have only one user. So that's why it's only one object here. Next thing, we need a database context. So let's create application DbContext.cs file. And here we will add our application context. So let me add a class here, import the required packages. So what we're doing here, we are defining application context deriving from DbContext class. And here we are defining two tables, users and to-dos. And they are of type DbSetUser, the model we just created, and to-do. Okay, so we will be able to read this table information using these properties. Now, next part is defining the DbContext into the application builder. So in the program.cs, we need to define our application builder file. So for that, first thing you need is a connection string. So in your application project, define a connection string based on your database settings. So here you will specify the connection string and you need to read it in the application file. So first thing you do is in the builder, we need to read the connection string. So connection string will be read from the builder.configuration connection string. So the key name default connection should match with the key name that you specify in appsetting.json file. And once that connection string is read, you can pass it to the DbContext. Let me import the required package here. And here we specify application DbContext that we just set up in the different file here. So with this, .NET will know that when application start, it needs to initialize the entity framework, and entity framework will say which class I need to start with as a context. So we say you need to read this context class, and there are two properties, users and to-dos. So entity framework will try to connect this with the users and to-dos class here, and based on the properties defined, it will fetch those data. So the next step is we can define the endpoint which shall return the to-dos here. So let's define a to-do endpoint. What I will do is I will just have one endpoint here with a map get to-dos. I will inject the application DbContext, and I will return db.todos.toListAsync. And this to-dos is from application DbContext. Now, if I save the changes, let me close this one, clear the console output, and start the application. And let me go to the browser. Let me refresh my scalar. And in scalar, you can see I have one endpoint here, weather forecast. And here I have, let me put it here like this. Here is the to-do endpoint we just defined. So you can see this endpoint returns array of to-dos, and let's try to run this one. So we say get all to-dos, and we get to-dos by, it's not by user right now, it's returning all the user from database, but this is the connection from our .NET 9 to a database without any queries. We are not writing any queries, we are using entity framework. We need another endpoint here which shall return to-dos by given user ID, because we don't want to list to-dos cross users. So what we can do is we can define another endpoint here, to-dos slash user ID as a parameter. And since we're passing user ID here, we need to specify user ID parameter in the function. And I will just comment it out and let my copilot suggest me the return statement. So what we're doing, we are filtering the to-dos here based on the user ID, which is matching with the parameter one. So let me restart my application. So I should have two endpoints. One is to-dos and to-dos by ID. So here I have only to-dos. Let me refresh, and I should have a user ID as a parameter. Now let's go to test, and here we can specify user ID as 1 and send. So now we will get to-dos only by the user ID 1. So here is user ID 1, to-do 1, user ID 1, to-do 4. If I specify 2, here is user ID 2 and to-do. And 3, I think 3 also has something there. Yep, so 3 has only one to-do. So this is how you can set up your entity framework with .NET 9 database first approach. Thank you.